वंदे गुजरात।
સંધાન ઓલ ગુજરાત ઇન્ટિગ્રેટેડ ક્લાસરૂમ
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Professor Surbhi Ahir. We'll discuss on labor policy in India in the current scenario. In today's session, we will have a glance on definition, evolution, and even on some of the reforms in the labor laws. Now, if we talk about the legislation, what is legislation? Legislation is just an institution which operates in the area of controlling and regulating and directing the actions, individuals' actions and in a desirable channel. Now, if we talk about labor laws, what is labor laws? Labor law is just a body of laws which helps to regulate the relations between employees and employers. It helps to just give a direct connection, a direct flow, and even some restrictions and even some rights and duties. If we talk about the objectives, of labor laws, generally the first and most important objective of labor law is to form a legal system which will facilitate the individuals and the employers to form a harmony relationship. On the contrary, labor law is just a guarantee machine which helps to have an interaction between both the parties. Now, if we talk about some of the history of labor laws, before 1919, the scenario was such that industrial development was not there. As and when industries were just going on, as and when industrial revolution started, laborers had to move from their personal work to industries. Now the problem was that they were facing many problems, such as working conditions. They were not given hygiene working conditions. On the contrary, wage issues were there, like they were not paid on time, or this or that. Any type of deductions were concluded in the wages, and even their working conditions and even wages, other than this, many other exploitation was there. So in 1919, ILO was formed in Geneva, and India is one of the member of ILO. Now, being the member of ILO, there were many recommendations and conversations passed to form labor policies. Now, basically, as we had discussed earlier, the main form of the labor policy was just to have social justice and economic justice, and for promoting the welfare of laborers. Now, in today's session, we will even have highlights on labor policies. Mainly, labor policy was generally to create harmonious relationship. Other than this, some social security benefits were created. Even unified and beneficial management of funds and welfare board was created. Now, basically, some public utility services have been also formed. Many reforms were there in the labor policies. Now, if we say about the term, in today's session, we will have even the classification. Whenever the laws were formed, they were generally divided into three categories. Those laws were followed by central government, and though even by state government also. Some laws were there which was only followed by the state government, or followed by both, or only by created by a state government and followed by them only. Now, if we talk about some laws related to industrial relation, there are basically three laws, which are Trade Union Act 1926, Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946, and Industrial Dispute Act 1947. In today's session, we will have just a glance of all these laws. Now, if we talk about Trade Union Act 1926, according to Section 2, subsection H of Trade Union Act 1926, trade union means it's a combination, whether temporary or permanent, formed primarily basically to regulate the relations between workmen and employers, between employers and employers, and between workmen and workmen. This were basically for imposing restrictive conditions on the conduct of trade and business, and it may include the federation of two or more trade unions also. In this act, Trade Union Act 1926, there are basically three provisions, which are registration of trade union, their rights and privileges, and even their obligations and liabilities. Now, if we talk about the registration of trade union, any trade union which are having 7 or more members can form a trade union, right? Other than this, they have to apply for registration to registrar. They have to include some criterias are there in the sections. They have to state the name of the trade union. They have to even tell about the objectives of their trade union. Even than this, they have to also mention about the name of the office bearers, how many members will be there, where this general fund of the trade union will be used. They have to also allocate and note about the inspections of the trade union. This all the things are the trade unions are supposed to go through all these things. They are supposed to mention all these things in their reports and submit it to the registrar. Now, after going through all the documents, if the registrar feels everything complies under the law, they will issue the certificate of registration. There are many rights and privileges which this trade union which are registered they have, and even they are also liable for some liabilities also. Trade union which are registered have a different entity. Even other than this, they are able to sue or can be sued. And if we talk about some of the liabilities, each and every trade union are supposed to submit reports of their annual report to the registrar also. Now, next, in this act, even the penalty section is also been included, in which the employers which are not following, the trade unions which are not using the fund in the manner which they had stated, then the penalties are being imposed on them. Now, if we talk about the next act, it's Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946. Basically, the main objective of this Standing Order Act was to form a uniform standing order which are applicable to workers, factories, and even working relationship. Basically, this standing order covers the terms and conditions of employment, and this is generally created to minimize the exploitation of workers and to even promote the industrial peace. If we tell in the journal sense, in a standing order is just rules and regulation which every employee must have been known when they join the organization. So, to form a uniformity, this act was enacted. Before this act, the scenario was such that whenever employer feels they used to they used to have some restrictions on the employer. They used to have their own rules and regulations. But to form uniformity, this act was enacted. Now, the next act which we are going to have a glance is Industrial Dispute Act 1947. According to Section 2, subsection H of Industrial Dispute Act 1947, a industrial dispute is defined as any dispute or differences arose between employees and employees, employees and employers, and which are connected with the terms and conditions of employment, even with the employment and non-employment, and even in the connected with the condition of labor or any other person. If we talk about some of the objectives of Industrial Dispute Act, basically their main objective is to investigate and settle industrial dispute. Now, for settling the industrial dispute, there are basically two broad categories. First is the conciliation machinery, and the second is arbitration. In conciliation, there are works committee, conciliation officer, board of conciliation, and even the court of inquiry. Now, on the other, arbitration machineries are labor court, industrial tribunal, and the national tribunal. Now, according to Section 2, according to Section 2 of according to Section 3 to Section 9 in Chapter 2 of this Act, all these procedures are being mentioned. Now, if we talk about the Works Committee is a form of committee which is formed in the industry where 100 or more employees are being employed. And in any day of the preceding 12 months, government will give a copy in their official gazette, and that company is supposed to form a works committee. In works committee, basically there will be equal members of employers and employees. Now, any dispute or differences arises between the employees, they will first refer that to works committee. Works committee will try to solve the issues and try to have a harmony relationship. If that is not possible with them, then they will refer this dispute to the next committee, that is conciliation officer. Now, conciliation officer is appointed by appropriate government, and appropriate government will appoint according to their wish, that they appoint one conciliation officer for a particular industry, or one particular officer for a set of industries or some specified industry. It's up to appropriate government. Now, conciliation officer will go through the dispute and will frame. If he is able to solve the issue, if he is able to solve the dispute, he will frame a memorandum of association, which he will submit to the government within the 14 days. And that memorandum of settlement will be duly signed by both the parties of dispute. If he is not able to solve the dispute, he will refer the dispute to Board of Conciliation. In Board of Conciliation, there are generally one chairman, and other than this, there will be equal members of both the parties of dispute. They will investigate the matter. They will look on what conciliation officer and what proceedings the works committee have done, and then they will try to solve the dispute. And they will form the report, and they will submit it within the 30 days. But if it's settled, then they will have it will be duly signed by both the parties, and if it's not settled, they will carry forward it to next committee, and that is court of inquiry. In a court of inquiry, the members are generally appointed by appropriate government. They will form a inquiry committee, which will till date discuss, till date have a discussion, have a review, have an inspection on what provisions have been done to solve the dispute, why it was till date not been solved, what each and every committee had done. They will have a just overlook of all the things. They will try to solve the dispute. They will frame a report, and that will be again submitted to the next committee, that will be Labour Code. According to section in chapter 2 of the Labour Act, there are points which are mentioned that dispute will be related, that will be forwarded to Labour Code, and the other will be forwarded to Industrial Tribunal. If they are able to solve, then it's okay. Otherwise, the last option, the last arbitration machinery is the National Tribunal. The award given by National Tribunal will be the last means for them. Both the parties are bound to follow the award given by the National Tribunal. Other than this, the Industrial Dispute Act prohibits the provision of strike and lockout in the due course of settlement of industrial dispute. Even the workmen are given the relief of layoff and retrenchment. Even they are given the rules and regulations in which way the both the parties or any party will be given permission to do strikes and do lockouts. Now, next act, which will be it's about the wages. The first will be the Payment of Wages Act 1936, Minimum Wages Act 1948, the Payment of Bonus Act, and the Working General Wage Fixation 1958. Now, the Payment of Wages Act 1936. Before the enactment of this act in 1936, the scenario was such that the employers, it was upon the employers only that when to give wages, and in many cases the employer used to deduct amount from the wages of the employees. There was many and